Today we're going to talk about battery life on the Epix Gen 2 because I've gotten a lot of questions about this. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave from Chase Summit, and in this video I want to talk about my experience with the Garmin Epix Gen 2 since I started wearing this thing back before it was even launched in December of 2021. I've had a lot of time to spend with this watch, and I think the most commonly asked question I get about it is, how's the battery life? Because it seems like everyone making a decision between the Garmin Fenix 7 or the Epix Gen 2 makes that decision based on battery life. Well, also the really nice screen on the Epix Gen 2, but mainly battery life. A little while ago, I posted a video about the Garmin Fenix 7 and Epix Gen 2 and what settings to change to really maximize your battery life. I'm not going to go through that in this video, and if you're interested in that video, I'll link it up here. Instead, I want to walk you through my use case, how I use this watch, and how much battery I'll actually get out of it, because what I did was I charged it to 100%. I've used it like I usually would, and then I documented every day. I took a picture of the watch, the battery life, took a picture before my activities, wrote down how much battery I was getting, and really documented it through the entire process of charging and depleting the battery over and over again to get a real solid idea of real life performance when it comes to battery life on the Epix Gen 2. So this video might get a little bit dense, but I think this is what people want. So let's get into it. Before we dive all the way in, I do want to let you know that this video is sponsored by PlayBetter.com, and if you're interested in picking up an Epix Gen 2 or a Garmin Fenix 7 or any Garmin for that matter, go check out the links down below because they do help support this channel, and PlayBetter is a really awesome place to shop with free 2-day shipping and a no-hassle 2-month-long return policy. So if you change your mind on a Garmin Epix Gen 2 2 months later, it's no problem. You can send it back for a full refund, which is really awesome. With that out of the way, let's talk about my use case. I'm mainly a runner. I'm not really a cyclist or a rower or a swimmer or anything. I run basically on a daily basis. That's either on the road, on the trails, or on my treadmill inside the house, because this time of year it's mud season and it's not great to be out on the trails or in the rain. So I've been spending a lot of time on the treadmill as well. So a given week for me, when I'm wearing the Epix Gen 2, I wear it 24 hours a day. That means I'm sleeping with it. I'm living my daily life with it. I'm working with it, taking care of my kids with it, and I'm also doing my activities with it, with running. When it comes to the actual claimed stats from Garmin, they say that you can get up to 16 days of battery life with the Epix Gen 2 if you use it in gesture mode, or up to 6 days of battery life if you use it with the always on display turned on. And if you don't know what gesture mode is, it basically means that if you raise your wrist like this, the screen will automatically come on like you just saw, and you'll be able to read the screen without a problem. And if you have it on always on display, the display just never turns off, so you don't have to worry about raising your wrist. You can see it 24 hours a day. That said, I will say that the gesture mode on the Epix Gen 2 in particular is extremely responsive, and if you just kind of glance at your watch, it seems to always turn on. I've had zero issues with it, so for me, I've been leaving it in gesture mode basically 100% of the time. Now, when it comes to GPS activity battery life on the Epix Gen 2, you're looking at up to 32 hours in gesture mode or 24 hours with the always on display, and this is with the all systems turned on. That's the default setting out of the box. For this video, for my use case, all of the settings I'm going to talk about here are basically out of the box settings, with the exception of the always on display, which I disabled. All right, so let's get down to the nitty gritty here. On day one, I charged the watch to 100% in the morning, and I went for a run that day. Before my run, it was at 97%. So just from the time I charged it in the morning, from the time I went for a run, which was after work in the afternoon, it was at 97%. I then went for a 1-hour run, which was about 8 miles. I'm not very fast. And after the run, I was down to 93%. That means I lost 4% of battery in that 1-hour run. And that's about estimating to come out to about 25 hours. Keep in mind, Garmin's claimed specs for battery life are not going to represent what you or I might get, because it's a huge variable. If you're somebody who continually raises your wrist to turn on that backlight to see your mileage or pace or whatever, if you do that a million times and the backlight is always turning on, you're going to burn more battery life than if someone else was running with the same watch and didn't even look at the watch, so it never turned on, because the backlight is one of the biggest contributors to having poor battery life. Now let's talk about overnight battery life. So I've been using the Epix Gen 2 with sleep mode, which is basically a mode that turns on when you go to bed. That means the backlight will not automatically turn on when you raise your wrist. While you're tossing and turning while you're sleeping, you will not be burning through battery life, which is a great feature to have. And I found sleep mode to be really nice because with that AMOLED display, it's very bright and distracting. So when you do raise your wrist in the middle of the night by accident, it can actually be kind of blinding with how bright that backlight is, and it's very distracting. So sleep mode has been a nice way to mitigate that, and it does save you a ton of battery life. The next several days were very similar to that. I was, sleeping and running just about every day, usually about an hour a day I'd spend running, and sometimes on the treadmill. Now, the difference on the treadmill is you're not using the GPS antenna of the Epix Gen 2, so you're not draining extra battery life when you're on the treadmill. And in my use case, after an hour on the treadmill, I was burning between 1 and 2% of battery life, which is actually pretty impressive. So how long did the battery last on my Epix Gen 2 while I was documenting this process? Well, let's cut to the chase here. In my use case, like I said, I basically run every single day between 40 and 50 miles a week right now, and that's a pretty heavy amount of GPS and treadmill use. And after 15 days, my Garmin Epix Gen 2 was at 3% of battery life. So for me, this is really acceptable. And 15 days is a pretty long time to charge a watch in between uses. That's pretty solid. And keep in mind, I was not babying this thing. I was not like turning down the backlight or anything. This is on out of the box settings with the exception of using gesture mode instead of the always on display. And I'd say 15 days is totally acceptable and pretty darn close to Garmin's claimed 16 days of general use. At the end of the day, I think most users are going to see between 14 and 15 days of use with the Epix Gen 2 if you use gesture mode, or all the way down to 4 or 5 days of use if you use the always on display. And I think that's really the whole story when it comes to the Epix Gen 2 and its battery life. Of course, there are other variables. If you play music on your Epix Gen 2, that really cripples the battery life. If you crank up the GPS accuracy and use multi-band GPS mode, that's going to kill your battery life. So I'm just talking out of the box settings. This is what you can expect. Another quick thing I want to mention is a widget that I found on the Connect IQ store that you can download for free on the Epix Gen 2 that I found really useful in terms of battery life. If I scroll up here, you can see this battery graph widget. If I click in on that, you can see my last charge was actually right before this video for about 15 minutes because I needed to charge it up so I could show it off in this video because it was totally dead. And if I scroll down, there's actually a graph to show your battery depletion over the past X amount of time. This graph is super cool. And if you go on several days on a single charge, you'll get a ton of information as to what activities and what you're doing that's killing the battery. So go check out this widget. I'll link it in the description of this video down below because it is really helpful. And that's really it for this super short video. I just want to give you a quick download on my use case and my experience with the battery life on the Epix Gen 2 and what you and most users can expect when you take this thing out of the box, put it on your wrist and start using it. I didn't do anything special here. These are the numbers I was getting, and I hope it was helpful. And if you did find this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you went down and gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. Also, check out the links in the description down below for the best pricing available on the Epix Gen 2, the Fenix 7, and every other watch that's out there. All right, this was a short and sweet video. I hope you found it helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye.